Hey guys, and welcome to this episode of the podcast. Today and for the next few weeks, we're going to be talking about the impeachment that's going on right now. And I'm asking one major question each week. This week is, do you believe the president was right or wrong in asking the Ukrainian president to look into corruption and 2016 election interference? But it's only a question that you can answer because only you know if you think it's right or wrong. All I'm going to do is put out some facts here that prove why I think he's right in doing it. But the rest is up to you. So I'm using these from johnsolomonreports.com because he's an excellent source. He always shows his work. And I think, yes, he does have a bias, but his reporting is impeccable because he sources everything properly and shows his work. So, let's just jump right in. This is kind of debunking some of the myths surrounding the Bidens and the Ukraine stuff and election interference and all this. So, first myth. There is no evidence that the Democratic National Committee sought Ukraine's assistance during the 2016 election. The facts. The Ukraine Embassy in Washington confirmed to me this past April that a Democratic National Committee contractor named Alexandra Chalupa did in fact solicit dirt on Donald Trump and Paul Manafort during the spring of 2016 in hopes of spurring a pre-election congressional hearing into the Trump campaign's ties to Russia. The embassy also stated Chalupa tried to get Ukraine's president at the time, Petro Poroshenko, to do an interview on Manafort with an American investigative reporter working on the issue. The embassy said it turned down both requests. You can read the Ukraine embassy statement here, which I have pulled up for you. The embassy got to know Ms. Chalupa because of her engagement with Ukrainian and other diasporas in Washington, D.C., and not in her DNC capacity. We learned about her DNC involvement later. We were surprised to see that Alexandra's interest in Mr. Manafort's case. It was her own cause. The embassy representatives unambiguously refused to get involved in any way, as she was convinced that this is, as we were convinced that this is strictly a U.S. domestic matter. And they turned over no documents whatsoever. So, that's just one of the ways that they tried to get involved. It says, Chalupa's activities involving the Ukraine were further detailed in a May 2016 email published by WikiLeaks in which she reported to DNC officials on her efforts to dig up dirt on Manafort and Trump. You can read the email here, which we have pulled up. A lot more coming down the pipe. I spoke to a delegation of 68 investigative journalists from Ukraine last Wednesday at the Library of Congress, the Open World Society's forum. They put me on the program to speak specifically about Paul Manafort, and I invited Michael Isikoff, who I've been working with over the past few weeks, and connected him to the Ukrainians. More offline tomorrow, since there is a big Trump component, and you and Lauren need to be aware of that will hit next week, in the next few weeks, and something I'm working on you should be aware of. This is kind of funny too. Since I started digging into Manafort, these messages have been a daily occurrence on my Yahoo account, despite changing my password often. Well, this is obviously the Russians hacking you. I mean, they were doing a phishing scheme trying to get you to change your password, and it obviously worked because here we have your email that nobody else was supposed to see. And that's me being intellectually honest, saying that I'm pretty sure it was the Russians in a phishing expedition that got in here and hacked this and handed it over to WikiLeaks. I mean, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't do it. But moving on, Chalupa's activities involving the Ukraine were further detailed on May 2016. Okay, yeah, we read that. Myth. There is no evidence that Ukrainian government officials tried to influence the American presidential election in 2016. The facts. There are 2 documented episodes involving Ukrainian officials' efforts to influence the 2016 American presidential election. Okay, so let's look at the first one, because this is the black ledger on Paul Manafort that caused him to have to resign and put him under investigation. But let's look at who it was. Who was it? Sergei Lashenko was the one, a Ukrainian official, who actually put this out. Put out the black ledger. Now, why would he do that? Sounds to me like he's trying to interfere in the 2016 elections. I don't see any other reason why he wouldn't. Why he would do it, I understand why he would want to do it, but yeah. The second episode occurred on U.S. soil back in August 2016 when Ukraine's then ambassador to Washington, we know that name, Valerie Chalet, took the extraordinary steps of writing an op-ed in The Hill criticizing GOP nominee Donald Trump and his views on Russia just 3 months before the election. You can read that article, which we're going to look at. The allegation that hold on. Chalet later told me through his spokesperson that he wasn't writing the op-ed for political purposes, but rather to address his country's geopolitical interest. But this article nonetheless was viewed by many in career diplomatic circles as running contrary to the Geneva Convention's rules, barring diplomats from becoming embroiled in the host country's political affairs, and it clearly adds to the public perception that Ukraine's government at the time preferred Hillary Clinton over Trump in the 2016 election. And, of course, because of due diligence, I will show you his op-ed. Ukraine's ambassador, Trump's comments send wrong message to the world, by Ambassador Chalet, who's a contributor to The Hill, by the way, which is odd enough. Not really. I mean, you can be a contributor to that. That's completely fine. Does it break the rules of the Geneva Convention? Maybe. Does it show that he at least wanted to get the word out there and try to help interfere in the election? Sure. So, next week we're going to dig into why, or how the Bidens tie into this. But remember the question that I asked you at the beginning. Ask yourself, given this information that we've just seen, does it look like the Ukrainians were trying to interfere in the 2016 election? Yes. Does that mean that Trump should do what he did in asking the new Ukrainian president to look into that and to look into corruption? In my opinion, yes. So that's where I'll leave it, and you guys get to decide whether or not you think that merits looking into or not. If you don't, then you can just disregard the whole thing. That's up to you. Until next time, thanks for riding along.